always lived.
Got you. So it gets like a little wild over there.
And like, but they like being kind of surrounded in that bubble. It's very much a bubble.
I got you.
It is a bubble.
Okay. Is it a party bubble or?
They're definitely, I don't have anything to compare it to. I'm sure it's not like ASU or UCSB. Like everybody knows those as like the party schools on the West Coast. We definitely partied. I was in the Greek system.
Okay.
So that kind of like definitely influenced with the amount of partying I did.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was like a party school. A lot of people there to learn. And that's like, that was my priority there as well.
Oh yeah. So during, college, did you have jobs?
So the first year or so I didn't. Okay. Because I was getting acclimated. I didn't want to take that on. But we had what's called the coffee shop or the coffee house. The coffee house. If you know Davis, you've heard of the coffee house. Okay. It's like an institution. It's so much more than a coffee house. It's a student-run eatery in the middle of campus. That is like multiple coffee shops, multiple little bakery, grab and go sandwiches, wraps, a hotline, pizza counter, like kind of like a Tex-Mex counter. All the different foods you could think of. And I think they just celebrated their 50th year anniversary, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago or so.
Okay.
So they've been around a long time. It's an institution. They employ a huge number of students on campus. And so obviously cooking, I was like, oh my gosh, what a great place to get a job. Got a job there and worked part-time there while I was going to school to be exposed to it. And it was not by any means a restaurant. It was a bunch of kids
having fun,
playing music, making tuna salad, and like having a good time. But nonetheless, I fell in love with it. I was like, this is awesome. Yeah. I want to be around this. I excelled very quickly. I went from just, a prep cook to one of the kitchen supervisors in a short period of time. So I was like, okay, I'm good at this. Yeah. I have the eye for detail. This is something I definitely want to pursue outside this.
For sure. Okay. So then after school, right, where do you go from there?
After school, was challenging in the sense of figuring out kind of what to do. Yeah. Because still, even at this time, we're talking 2010, being a chef was not still something necessarily that you could proclaim from the mountaintop.
Exactly.
As like, I'm successful, I'm a chef. So I have a degree and I have kind of this internal struggle of like, what is my friends, my family, people going to think of me if I don't use this degree that I just spent all this time, all this money doing. But I ignored all of those like kind of internal negative thoughts about what other people might think of me and wanted to get a job in a restaurant. San Francisco was kind of like the place to go at the time. I mean, it still is. Yeah. But I couldn't get a job there. I didn't know the industry. I didn't know the way it worked. I didn't really even know like how to apply other than filling out an application online. And that's not really how you get a job in a kitchen back then.
Yeah, for sure.
So through a friend of a friend, I got put in touch with someone that was opening a restaurant in Ukiah. Okay. Which, you know Ukiah? Yeah. Small town, about 3 hours north of San Francisco. Yeah. Maybe a little further. Not much else around there. And so I was like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. I'll move to Ukiah. Why not? And so it was like me, my cat, U-Haul, got a little apartment, a little 1-bedroom apartment in Ukiah. And showed up for like the first day of work, and it was this huge operation. Okay. Like something that now looking back on it, I don't know how that came to fruition, but it was like a steakhouse, bakery, butcher shop, all in one, and a bar that had a sports bar attached. And it was like everything. This huge, huge operation. Had to have been a lot of money put into it for the build out in this tiny little town where like the biggest competition is Applebee's across the street. There are no other like restaurants per se. Okay. And so I took that job, started as a line cook, quickly got promoted to a sous chef, but was learning everything. I didn't know anything about actually cooking. Everything I learned up to that point was like watching Good Eats, like reading cookbooks. That like Good Eats was like my culinary school. I watched like Alton Brown growing up, like over and over. I like knew all his techniques, all his thought processes, like why he did certain things. And that became like, okay, I at least know this much about it. This is what I know. And so using that and kind of picking up things on the job every day, talking to the other people that were there.
Mm-hmm.
And quickly saw a lot of like, well, this doesn't seem right. And I learned kind of what not to do
Exactly.
in a restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
the way business maybe shouldn't be run or things you shouldn't do in a kitchen. But I took that as a learning experience. I was like, okay, like I'm seeing it. Clearly this probably isn't the right way to do things, but at least it's a way to do things.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this isn't really going anywhere. I need to figure out my next moves. And fortunately enough, there was a guy, an older gentleman. He'd been a chef. He owned restaurants at one point in his life. He'd been through a lot.
Yeah.
And kind of almost saw me, I guess, as a son.
Okay.
And was like, Joe, sat me down one day. Joe, you need to get out of here. You need to go to San Francisco. This place is going nowhere.
Yeah.
Who knows when it's going to close or something's going to happen. And he saw talent in me and was like, you need to go get another job. And I was like, well, I don't know how. Nobody will let me in the door because I have no experience.
Yeah.
Everybody wants 2 or 3 years experience. And this one, I had maybe like 6 months, 8 months experience. And he's like, okay, this is what you're going to do. Put my name down. He had like a house number, a cell phone number, and like another cell phone number. He's like, put down all my numbers on your resume. We'll make up names of restaurants. And if anyone calls me, I'll say you worked for me and say that you're awesome. He's like, you need to get out of here. And I was like, okay, like that makes sense. And so I used that. My resume now looked like I had a few years of experience.
Yeah.
Went to the city and immediately was able to find a job, found a restaurant, got my foot in the door. I don't think anyone ever called him. I mean, I don't know about you. I rarely call references.
No.
Like, that's not something you necessarily do. When I'm the chef of a place, I'll text a colleague.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Somewhere
he's worked. Yeah.
Somewhere he's worked, but you're not going to call
or demeanor in general.
Right.
I
don't know how other industries work.
Exactly.
For those of you listening that don't know, it's not necessarily something that's very common to call references.
No, hell no.
In the restaurant industry. And so I got a job at Michael Mina's at RN74.
Okay.
Which was like a French, brasserie.
Okay.
Sort of thing.
Did you have the stage?
I think I might have, God. I want to say I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I did.
Got you.
I stopped.
Now, when you moved from Ukiah to San Francisco, how big of an endeavor was that?
That was a big leap. I got a U-Haul. I packed it myself. I was lucky in the sense I didn't have to search very far and wide for a place.
Okay.
Which I didn't know at the time how hard housing was in San Francisco.
Yeah.
But I mean, it also too, I think it was a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-bedroom house with maybe 8 people living in it.
Okay. You and your buddies or just room share Craigslist? Okay, gotcha.
Craigslist family.
Okay, heard.
And so like 2 of the guys were friends. They had lived there a long time. And a lot of the people had been there a while. One person was leaving. So like I remember I did the house interview. So you got to go and meet the people.
Yeah.
And you got to interview with them. And one of the things I remember he told me afterwards, because we became friends, we're still friends.
Yeah.
Which might be rare, I don't know. Is they were talking and they were playing Halo on Xbox.
Yeah.
And I was not a huge video game person. I didn't have time for that. I worked in a restaurant.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, we play Halo all the time. I was like, oh my God, Halo. I love Halo. Favorite video game. And I was like, oh yeah, Halo tournaments. We could play Halo together all the time. And this guy Dan got so excited that a fellow Halo player.
Yeah.
That bumped me to the top of the potential interview list. And so I was able to get in. And then when we got there, like, a couple of weeks go by, he said, when are we going to play Halo? I was like, I don't really play Halo.
Wow.
And it became like an ongoing joke like the whole time. He was like, man, Joe, every time I see him, he's like, man, if only we played Halo together.
That's what.
So that's kind of how I landed then in San Francisco. And it was a grind.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
sure.
like, it's a grind, especially at that age. And I feel like it's almost a different time now where it'd be much harder for a young cook to do the same thing that I did.
No, for sure.
Because you can't work for free anymore, even if you just want to learn.
Yeah. It's very hard
for a number of reasons. I mean, people get taken advantage of, and so there are now laws and protections in place looking out for those people that do get taken advantage of.
Yeah.
But it becomes very hard then for people that want to just better themselves.
Yeah.
And learn and put in the time. So I was showing up hours early for my shift, staying later hours early for my shift, off the clock, but because I wanted to, and I had no problem with that. Like, I wanted to learn. I was like hungry for knowledge. I wanted to see things. I wanted to be exposed to things. I wanted to see how the fish was broken down. I wanted to see how the meat was broken down. I wanted to see. I wanted to learn. I wanted to touch. And like, it's crazy now thinking kind of how far just everything has changed in the past 10 years. Yeah. It's very hard for a young cook to do that same sort of grind. Yeah. Which is, I don't want to say it's unfortunate. It's just different. And it's like, I don't know how then other people can learn that same way, because it's harder than now. No, I'm a business owner. I totally understand the flip side of it. You can't have people working for
yeah, exactly.
Talk like, that's screwed up. Mm-hmm. Like, there are so many liability issues. But exactly. The world was a different place back then. So yeah. I was able to kind of do that.
I wonder how the knowledge is going to be transferred.
You know, funny, I think a lot of knowledge these days, I don't know if it's, I don't think it's sadly, but virtually is really like where everybody's transferring knowledge and learning. And then, okay, so you don't spend the extra hours in the kitchen, you spend extra hours on YouTube. Yeah. I don't know if that translates to the same thing. Yeah. It probably doesn't. It does to an extent. You know, you're not learning to cut tape or put labels on something at home. Mm-hmm. It's something you would learn in a restaurant, but you can still learn a lot of technique and ways to do things.
For sure. What were you doing at this restaurant? I mean,
So I started as a fish entremet. Okay. So that is the person
right on the hotline.
Right on the hotline. Right on the hotline. Fish entremet, cooking the side dishes, the sides and veggies that went with the fish course. Got you. So it was a small hotline, but a lot of people on it. There was the fish cook, the fish entremet, the meat cook, the meat entremet, and the oven. And the oven did like escargot, bone marrow, and all like the French things, applaus. And so I just got thrown in the thick of it. Okay. And the two cooks next to me were, I mean, at the time I thought I knew they were strong cooks. Yeah. They had held themselves to a high standard. They held me to a high standard. And they've gone on and done great things with their careers. Yeah. So it's like, I was surrounded by good people at the time. Okay. Which I think makes a huge difference.
Oh, for sure.
Because it's like, they're not letting little things slip. Mm-hmm. And so I remember getting so frustrated for weeks learning how to make a butter, like how to glaze turnips. Mm-hmm. And the idea of like emulsifying water and butter on a vegetable in a pan, I just couldn't wrap my head around it. I never learned. I didn't understand it. I was never taught. And every time I passed up the turnips in the pot and the pan, it was either too much liquid and they'd like pour it out. I had to go on on one of those little trays with the seafold.
With the seafold, yeah.
With the seafold, and let all the extra butter water drain. Or it was the other way where the glaze was broken and they were like shiny and not glazed. Yeah, and then I just couldn't figure it out. And then I remember the day it clicked and I was like, oh, this is what glazing is. And you kind of get an eye for it. You see the pan, you see the way it's bubbling. Yeah. And sometimes it's literally like a drop of water or just like half a second back on the heat. Yeah. Brings the glaze back together or fixes it. And they wouldn't let it slide ever, which pushed me to have that same standard to learn, to get better at it. And once I did, I just remember that being like a defining moment. Like, I finally learned how to glaze a vegetable.
Yeah. And you get frustrated.
So frustrated.
Like when they just give you the turns back. Nope. Yep. Try again. Not right. Nope. Try again.
Do it again.
And the craziest part about that is that they're holding up the entire service. Right. It's not like this is the only thing we're cooking. There's 40 plates behind
40 other plates. There's duck on the plate. Exactly. Steak is getting cut.
Things are getting cold.
Scallops are waiting.
Yeah. And then everybody's looking at you like, you can't glaze the turnip, dude.
Glaze the turnip.
That internal, like, fuck you guys. You know, that shit will make you better.
It will.
100% of the time.
The perseverance to do it.
For sure. Because at the end of the day, when you have that beer, you don't want to be the guy that can't glaze a turnip.
Yeah. You know, you want to be able to hold your head high.
Exactly.
And be proud of every single plate that you put out. I mean, it's like probably one of the most cliche sayings, but you're only as good as your last plate.
Oh, for sure. That's 100%.
But it's true.
Yeah.
You know, if you put up something as your last plate that's not, you can't be proud of.
Yeah. You're not proud of it. They're not proud of it. And then, you know, you always hang on to that. Like if you fucked up the glaze, you take that home with you, like